You know that feeling when your computer forces a system update right in the middle of a really busy workday?
Oh, yeah. The screen just goes black and you completely panic.
Right. You're just sitting there, lines of code are flashing by,
Yeah.
and you have, like, absolutely no idea if your files are safe.
You're just entirely at the mercy of this underlying system rewriting itself.
Exactly. Well, welcome to today's deep dive, because reading through the stack of sources we have for you today feels exactly like watching a global operating system rewrite itself in real time.
It really is a massive rewrite.
It is. We are unpacking a super comprehensive stack of reports from the August 7th, 2026 edition of the Nightly News.
And there is a lot to get through.
So much. Our mission today is to help you, the listener, make sense of this incredibly chaotic moment. Because we're looking at a day where the old rules of economics, global military alliances, and even the physical mechanics of the Earth itself are just being thrown out and rewritten.
All at the exact same time, which is just a phenomenal amount of data to process.
Which is why we're here. We want to provide you a shortcut to being the most well-informed person in the room.
We'll do the heavy lifting.
Right. We're going to extract those crucial aha moments without all the usual information overload. And to help us connect the dots to explain not just what is happening, but why it actually matters to you. I've got a resident expert here, so ready to look under the hood.
Let's do it. Let's see what's driving all of this.
Okay, let's start with the economy, because the rules we thought we understood are clearly, glitching.
Big time.
The July jobs report just dropped in these sources, and it completely defied expectations. Employers shed 23,000 jobs.
Which is wild.
It is, because the consensus going into the week was that the U.S. would add somewhere between 80,000 and 95,000 jobs.
Right, so that's a profound miss. It really indicates the labor market is cooling down much, much faster than the central bankers anticipated.
And the downward revisions make it look even worse, honestly.
Yeah.
The numbers for May and June were quietly revised down by a combined 103,000 jobs.
Ouch. Yeah, that's significant.
Plus, we're seeing major corporate bellwethers. I'm talking Walmart, Amazon, FedEx. They're listed among 17 or more companies announcing layoffs for August.
So the everyday economy is visibly struggling.
Yeah. But here's the crazy part. Amidst all this job loss, the official unemployment rate actually ticked down slightly to 4.1%.
I know, it sounds impossible.
I mean, how does an economy lose jobs but see a drop in the unemployment rate? Make it make sense.
So that actually comes down to the mechanics of the labor force participation rate.
Sure.
See, the unemployment rate only measures people who do not have a job but are actively looking for one.
Right.
If you stop looking, you are mathematically erased from the calculation. And according to the report, the labor force participation rate just hit 61.4%.
Which is low, right?
Very low. It's the lowest level since early 2021. So in a single month, 264,000 workers essentially just threw their hands up and exited the labor pool entirely.
Wow. 264,000 people.
Yeah. The unemployment rate went down simply because the denominator shrank.
Okay, that makes sense. But it leads to my primary confusion here. Because despite this grim reality for the American worker, the S&P 500 hit an intraday record high today.
Yep.
And gold surged to a 7-week high. So for anyone casually tracking their retirement portfolio, an intraday high means the index reached its highest ever trading value during the day's active hours.
Right, exactly.
But, I mean, it's like being in a car and the passengers start cheering when the check engine light comes on just because it means the mechanic might give them the discount.
Sure.
How can Wall Street investors cheer while 250,000 people walk away from the workforce?
It is a textbook example of the bad news is good news paradox.
Explain that.
Well, to understand Wall Street's reaction, you have to disconnect the stock market from the Main Street economy.
Okay.
Investors, they aren't looking at the struggles of the everyday worker. They are looking strictly at the Federal Reserve and the cost of borrowing money.
The interest rates.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So before this weak jobs report was published, the market was pricing in a 58% probability that the Fed would raise interest rates in September.
Right.
But once this data came out showing a really fragile labor market, those odds collapsed to roughly 42%.
Oh, wow. So they dropped fast.
Very fast. Wall Street realized the Fed basically can't afford to keep their foot on the brake anymore.
Because things are slowing down too much.
Exactly. And when interest rates come down, capital becomes cheaper. Cheaper capital means corporations can borrow more for less, which, artificially inflates future profit margins.
And drives stock valuations upward.
Yeah, The stock market is celebrating the return of cheap money, entirely divorced from the human cost of those lost jobs.
It really feels like two completely different realities. But the sources also indicate that cheaper borrowing isn't the only engine driving this market rally, right?
No, it's not.
The tech sector is soaring, and it seems to be centered around artificial intelligence finally, growing up.
Yeah, AI is transitioning from this theoretical promise into a really tangible revenue generator.
Let's dig into that.
Yeah.
Because Microsoft and Amazon's recent earnings calls confirmed that the billions they poured into AI infrastructure, it's finally yielding returns.
Real returns, yeah. AI revenue growth is accelerating sharply.
Microsoft even announced they are merging their consumer, GitHub, and enterprise Copilot products into a single app by the end of this year.
Which is huge.
And they're introducing a premium paid tier called Autopilot.
Now, that distinction between Copilot and Autopilot is critical to understand.
How so?
A Copilot still requires a human in the pilot seat, right? It assists you. But an autopilot is designed to run unattended background tasks.
Like doing things while you sleep.
Exactly. We are talking about algorithmic agents that can schedule meetings, summarize correspondence, and just execute entire workflows without you ever clicking a button.
It's literally the monetization of autonomous digital labor.
It is.
But, just as the technology becomes autonomous, the legal system is desperately trying to catch up.
As always.
Right. The European Union's AI Act just saw its Article 50 transparency obligations become legally enforceable on August 2nd.
Right, the new rules.
Yeah. Chatbots must now explicitly identify themselves as AI. And synthetic content has to carry machine-readable labels. And the teeth on this legislation are sharp.
Very sharp.
Penalties can reach up to 7% of a company's global revenue.
Which forces tech giants into compliance very quickly. I mean, consider that 7% of global revenue for a company like Microsoft is a staggering figure.
Unbelievable amount of money. And the friction isn't just with regulators, right? It's between the tech companies themselves.
Oh, absolutely.
A federal judge here in the U.S. just ordered OpenAI to produce internal documents as part of Apple's ongoing trade secret lawsuit.
The gloves are coming off.
Yeah, OpenAI immediately fired back, stating Apple's claims are based on false information, and they adamantly denied any interest in Apple's confidential intellectual property.
The intellectual property battle lines are definitely being drawn.
It reminded me of, the early days of aviation. We've proven the plane can fly, and now we're dealing with intense legal fights over who actually holds the patent for the engine.
While governments are just scrambling to draft air traffic control rules.
Yes, exactly. But I do have a question about those rules. The sources mentioned the EU has delayed the enforcement of their quote-unquote high-risk AI regulations.
Right.
Things affecting hiring algorithms, credit scoring, critical infrastructure, delayed all the way to December 2027.
That's a long way off.
It is. Does that mean companies just have a free pass to experiment on critical systems for the next year and a half?
Well, it highlights a really fundamental problem in modern governance. Regulating a chatbot that writes poetry is relatively straightforward, right?
Sure.
But defining the legal parameters for an algorithmic black box that controls a city's power grid or determines who gets a mortgage, that is technologically daunting.
They don't know how to do it yet.
Basically. The delay to 2027 isn't really a free pass. It is an admission by regulators that they simply do not yet possess the technical expertise to safely govern high-risk AI without inadvertently breaking the underlying systems.
The technology is literally evolving faster than the speed of legislation.
Exactly.
The digital rulebook is still being drafted. But while the tech sector fights over digital borders and intellectual property, traditional nations are currently engaged in very real friction over physical borders and security.
Always.
And before we get to the global stage, I want to objectively relay two significant domestic political developments mentioned in the nightly news stack today.
Right, and we should remind the listener, as always, we are simply reporting the facts provided in the source material without endorsing any political viewpoint.
Exactly, completely impartial. First, a Senate panel voted to hold Dr. Anthony Fauci in contempt of Congress after he'd invoked the Fifth Amendment.
Okay.
And Senator Rand Paul bypassed a full Senate vote to send the referral directly to the Department of Justice.
It's a big move.
Second, President Trump signed 2 executive orders tightening restrictions around birthright citizenship.
Those are both substantial shifts in domestic policy and oversight.
They really are. But turning our focus back to international security, the geopolitical map is undergoing a drastic realignment right now.
That's an understatement.
Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Pakistan have just signed what is being called the Mecca Joint Defense Pact.
Mhm.
And the core tenet is absolute. An attack on one is an attack on all three.
That is a highly formidable alliance.
A new Middle Eastern NATO,
Yeah,
essentially.
because when you combine those three nations, you are merging Saudi Arabia's immense financial capital and energy dominance,
Which is massive.
with Turkey's strategic geographic control of the Bosphorus and its standing as a NATO member, plus Pakistan's nuclear arsenal.
That is an intense combination.
It functions as an incredibly powerful deterrent bloc.
And this comes at the exact same time as another major development involving Iran.
Right.
An Iranian official confirmed a technical framework is in place with Oman regarding the Strait of Hormuz.
This is a huge deal.
It's pending final leadership approval. But Iranian media reports this deal would literally bar U.S. and Israeli vessels from the strait and require financial compensation before ships from quote-unquote hostile nations are allowed to transit.
This is exactly where global geopolitics directly intersects with the listener's wallet.
I was just going to ask you about that. For the person driving to work right now listening to this, how does a diplomatic standoff over a shipping lane halfway across the world actually impact their daily life?
It all comes down to the mechanics of the global supply chain. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most vital maritime choke points on the planet.
Because of oil.
Oil and gas. A significant percentage of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas flows through that narrow waterway.
Right.
If Iran and Oman enforce a framework that blocks Western ships or demands transit fees, the maritime insurance markets in places like London will immediately designate the area a severe conflict zone.
Which means insurance premiums for cargo ships just go through the roof.
Precisely. And shipping companies, they do not absorb those costs.
They pass them on to us.
Exactly. They pass them directly on to the consumer. The price of global freight spikes, which increases the cost of manufacturing, which ultimately drives up the price you pay at the gas pump and the grocery store.
Wow.
And this creates a really fascinating feedback loop with the economic data we discussed earlier.
Oh, because of the inflation data coming up.
Yes. The sources mention the upcoming August 12th Consumer Price Index data. If the Strait of Hormuz is restricted, inflation could reignite.
And if inflation reignites?
The Federal Reserve might not be able to cut those interest rates that Wall Street is currently celebrating.
Wow. Every system is just so deeply interconnected.
It really is.
So humanity is busy drawing new defensive lines on maps, battling over shipping lanes, arguing about inflation. But meanwhile, nature is throwing curveballs that make our political disputes look incredibly small.
Nature always wins.
It does. Let's talk about the physical planet, because geophysicists just reported something astounding. Earth's molten iron inner core has abruptly and unexpectedly reversed its rotation direction beneath the Pacific Ocean.
I mean, it certainly sounds alarming on the surface.
It does. My immediate instinct reading that is to ask if you and I should be packing our bags for a doomsday bunker right now. Like, how does the core of the planet just change direction?
Well, it helps to understand the physical structure of the Earth.
Okay, lay it on me.
The inner core is essentially a solid sphere of iron and nickel, roughly the size of Pluto,
Okay.
but it is suspended within the liquid metal of the outer core. Because it's suspended in liquid, it can rotate independently of the Earth's surface.
Right, okay.
So when scientists say it reversed, they don't mean the Earth is spinning backwards.
Oh, thank goodness.
They just mean the inner core has slowed down so much that relative to the surface of the Earth, it appears to be rotating in the opposite direction.
Oh, I get it. So it's kind of like an optical illusion based on relative speed.
In a sense, yeah. Geophysicists track this by measuring the seismic waves generated by massive earthquakes as they pass through the center of the Earth.
That's fascinating.
It is, and while it isn't a doomsday scenario, scientists are fascinated because changes in the core's rotation can actually cause microscopic fluctuations in the length of a day.
Wow.
And it can influence the planet's magnetic field. It's just a stark reminder of the immense, unseen forces operating beneath our feet.
And to be honest, the forces on the surface aren't much calmer right now.
No, they aren't.
We are seeing severe extreme weather patterns across the U.S. Dallas-Fort Worth is enduring a brutal heat index of 103 to 107 degrees.
Miserable.
Yeah, and wildfires are aggressively threatening the Pacific Northwest. Specifically, 3 major blazes encroaching on Spokane, Washington.
Right.
And simultaneously, there's a severe flood risk stretching from the southeast all the way up through New England, driven by these slow-moving storm systems.
The environmental baseline is just becoming increasingly volatile everywhere.
It really is. And that volatility extends to public health. which presents one of the most frustrating paradoxes in this entire stack of reports.
Yep, the health reports were tough to read.
They were. The World Health Organization is warning that the Ebola outbreak in the Congo is now the fastest growing in history. Over 4,000 people are infected, and cases are doubling in certain areas.
It's a crisis.
But the true tragedy is the underlying cause. Frontline nurses and health workers in the hardest-hit regions are walking off the job. Why? Because the government hasn't paid them since May.
It's just a catastrophic failure of basic infrastructure.
Exactly. And the contrast is glaring when you look at what happened on the exact same day in the biotech sector.
Oh, the Moderna news.
Yeah. The FDA just approved Moderna's first ever mRNA flu vaccine. It's a landmark achievement, expected to completely reshape the biotech industry. We even saw the stock for a company called Halozyme surge on a 48% revenue beat. It just makes me wonder, how is it possible that we possess the technology to literally program microscopic lipid nanoparticles to deliver genetic instructions for a flu vaccine, creating billions in wealth? But we cannot figure out how to process payroll for the nurses physically fighting Ebola.
It's maddening, but that juxtaposition really exposes the limits of scientific advancement when it's isolated from effective governance.
What do you mean?
Well, the biotech sector operates in this hyper-funded ecosystem, right, where complex biological problems are solved with engineering precision.
Right.
The mRNA vaccine works by teaching our cells how to make a protein that triggers an immune response, rather than injecting a weakened virus. It is brilliant.
Miracle.
But public health in crisis zones is a logistical challenge, not just a biological one. You can invent the most sophisticated medicine on the planet, but if the local supply chain is fractured, or a government just lacks the administrative capacity to pay its frontline defenders,
the science becomes entirely useless on the ground. Man, it is a sobering reality check on human progress. We are capable of biological miracles, but we still struggle with basic human organization.
We do.
Which perhaps explains why some scientists are looking beyond Earth entirely. This brings us to our final section: how we cope with isolation, how we optimize our biology, and how we entertain ourselves.
The study on human isolation you found in the sources is particularly revealing.
Yes, researchers just published findings from a 10-month Antarctic isolation study.
Right.
They placed 12 participants in an isolated environment to simulate the psychological toll of a long-duration mission to Mars.
You'd think loneliness would be the biggest issue.
That's exactly what they expected: severe loneliness. Instead, they found that participants struggled profoundly with the tension of overexposure to each other. Frequent contact actually correlated with elevated tension and conflict.
Basically, they got sick of each other, which really challenges our romanticized view of space exploration.
It really does. It just scientifically proved what we all learned during family road trips. As kids, too much time in a confined space causes tension.
Yep.
It seems the human brain isn't wired to handle constant, inescapable proximity to the same small group of people, no matter how highly trained they are.
No, we need space. Literally.
Right. But while we struggle to manage our psychology for space, we are aggressively trying to optimize our biology here at home. A new wearable sleep patch was just debuted.
This was fascinating.
Tested on 28 people, it requires no medication and no invasive procedures, yet it manages to get users into REM sleep 43 minutes faster and extends that critical restorative sleep phase by a full 16 minutes.
That is a really significant biological intervention.
Right.
I mean, REM sleep is when the brain consolidates memories and clears out neural toxins. Hacking that process to be more efficient implies we are desperate to maximize our recovery time so we can just keep pace with our waking lives.
Keep the machine running. And our waking lives are increasingly focused on the monetization of our own expertise and performance.
Always optimizing.
Look at the modern digital economy. The sources note that the LinkedIn creator economy is absolutely exploding. The number of creators on the platform doubled between 2021 and 2025.
Wow.
Top professionals are now earning up to $500,000 annually through brand partnerships, simply by sharing their specialized knowledge and building a personal brand.
It's the total commodification of individual expertise.
And it isn't just business expertise. The premium on live human entertainment is staggering. In the NFL, the Detroit Lions just signed Jahmyr Gibbs to a 3-year, $75.75 million contract.
Incredible numbers.
Making him the highest-paid running back in history. Bijan Robinson and Jonathan Taylor also secured massive payouts this week.
Right.
Meanwhile, in the corporate sports world, Disney Plus and DAZN just outbid beIN Sports to secure the broadcast rights for French La Liga soccer, ending a 14-year partnership.
Huge media shifts.
And just to acknowledge the sheer competitive nature of live performance, the WNBA's Minnesota Lynx finally saw their incredible 10-game win streak snapped by the LA Sparks.
If you connect those final data points, a really clear narrative emerges about what society truly values right now.
I'm curious to hear your take on that. If we're optimizing our sleep with skin patches and paying a running back $75 million while Disney spends billions on soccer streaming rights, are we just trying to hack the human experience?
Well, think about it. In an era where AI can write code, generate synthetic content, and soon run our administrative tasks on autopilot.
Like we talked about earlier.
Right. Genuine, live human performance becomes the ultimate premium asset. Live sports are DVR-proof.
True.
They force millions of people to watch simultaneously, making them the most valuable property for advertisers in a totally fragmented streaming landscape.
That makes total sense.
And the same principle applies to the LinkedIn creators making $500,000. As information becomes cheap and automated, authentic human expertise and charismatic delivery becomes scarce and incredibly valuable.
Because you can't fake it with a bot.
Exactly. We are craving connection and genuine human capability. Even as that Antarctic study shows, we still really struggle to coexist in confined spaces.
We want to watch humanity perform at its absolute peak, whether on a football field or on our LinkedIn feeds, but we prefer to do it from a comfortable distance.
Spot on.
It really is a fascinating reflection of the modern condition. Well, let's take a breath and recap the journey we've been on today.
It's been a long one.
We started with an economic system reacting paradoxically, celebrating a weakening job market because it signals the return of cheap borrowing rates. We watched the tech sector mature as AI moves from a search novelty to autonomous agents, while European and American regulators struggle to write the rulebook.
And we examined the geopolitical realignments of the Mecca Defense Pact, plus the inflationary threat posed by a potential shipping choke point in the Strait of Hormuz.
Then we looked beneath the Pacific Ocean at a reversing inner core, tracked extreme weather across the country, and confronted the tragic gap between the hyper-advanced mRNA biotech sector and the crumbling public health infrastructure in the Congo.
Yeah.
And finally, we explored our desire to optimize our sleep, conquer the psychological hurdles of a Mars mission, and pay an absolute premium for live human performance.
It is a vivid snapshot of a world in transition, that's for sure.
It is. And, as promised, you, the listener, are now equipped with the insights to be the most well-informed person in the room. But before we sign off, I know you always have one last concept for the listener to mull over.
Always. Consider the structural irony of the workforce data we explored today.
Okay.
We have a labor force participation rate dropping to its lowest level since 2021, with hundreds of thousands of people simply walking away from the traditional job market.
Right.
At the exact same time, Microsoft is deploying autopilot to handle the mundane background tasks that used to define entry-level corporate work.
Yes.
Yet, simultaneously, specialized individuals on LinkedIn are generating $500,000 a year simply by being charismatic experts. And athletes are signing $75 million contracts to showcase peak physical ability.
It's a huge divide.
It is, and it forces a provocative question. Are we currently witnessing the end of the traditional quote-unquote job?
Oh, wow.
As artificial intelligence absorbs the repetitive administrative labor, will the future economy simply divide into two distinct categories? A world where humans are only paid highly to be creators, entertainers, and specialized thinkers, while the machines silently manage everything else.
Will your future career just be a personal brand while an algorithm handles the paperwork? That is definitely something to think about the next time you feel like you're running on autopilot at the office. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the underlying mechanics of our changing world. Keep questioning the systems around you, and we'll see you next time.